Endless of heart, infinite of sight, blessed be your burning, fervent crusades of purification, the very purging of all that fills our endless void. Let us soon return to perfect nility once more, as we always have been, as we never were. Guide us, Fragments of Ender. Guide us, that so we may be one with you again. Within Minecraft dungeons, the main driving force of the story in almost every location is because of the actions of one of the Minecraft universe's most prominent villains. A villain cruel, manipulative, but so intelligent. This is the Orb of Dominance, also known as the Heart of Ender, when it takes its true form within its home dimension, the End. They're easily the most fleshed out villain of any Minecraft game. Not that there's much competition with the others, such as the Ender Dragon with not much character to go off of, or the Great Hog from Legends, which barely got any screen time or nearly as much development as his generals. The Heart's objective isn't as immediately obvious as the Great Hog's. It's clear the Great Hog and his piglins wanted to conquer the overworld for more land, resources, and so forth. It's all about power for such rulers. Though in dungeons, while the Heart of Ender attempts much of the same through Archie in an effort to take over the world, it doesn't immediately make sense for it to do so for its own reasons. It doesn't necessarily need resources like food or land, the things that drive these sorts of conflicts. But it's had its goals since before the Arch-Illager. Archie had laid claim to it. It doesn't truly need anything at all. Its final intentions remain mostly unknown. The way it exists outside of its homeworld is completely different from its perfect form. Its otherwise massive stature is condensed into an orb that you could easily hold in the palms of your hands. The Eyes of Ender in Minecraft dungeons seem like they could also be the same in this regard, never being seen in the end levels of the Echoing Void DLC, nor even in the form of Ender chests in dungeons, which otherwise are present in the vanilla End cities. Now a relic of old Minecraft development. Please update the End, Mojang! It's a very particular choice to omit their presence from the End itself. Today, we won't just be covering the Orb's timeline, but also diving into its psychology as a character. As in how certain events it has experienced would have shaped its later actions and perceptions. Its thought process, its relationship with the Enderman, the Eyes of Ender, and even a bit more that we have gleaned from the very concept of the broken god Ender. Simply put, we have compiled real psychological research and attributed it to a screaming Enderman cube. We are truly revolutionizing the Minecraft content space with this one. If you enjoy the video, consider liking and subscribing. To start off, we need to mention the origin of the Eyes of Ender and the Heart of Ender to better comprehend their standing within the End and its cosmic hierarchy. Lots of details which we've covered previously within the games point towards a long-gone godlike entity, with the eyes and heart once being part of the same whole. Fragments of a being known as Ender, now shattered as a result of a certain event that fragmented this great deity across their own world. The hearts and eyes are currently what we have seen so far of its remains, though there certainly may be more out there. Being the pieces of a deity, now as their own separate entities, they seemingly acted as authoritative figures in the End. Their symbols and visages are engraved and shaped into all sorts of decorative depictions. The eyes can be seen around the stronghold, for example. Their visage inscribed onto the doors, wooden murals, the eye armor trim found in the strongholds of vanilla, on the sides of staircases in an End city, the banners of the Citadel, the floors of the Citadel courtyards, and even the End Shrine, a place that was once of worship in the End. The Heart's visage is seen throughout the monstrosity designs, sharing the same formation of horns, 3 eyes, and a pronounced jaw. These machines were made in their image. The Lanterns of the Gale Sanctum, a space we know beings of the End shared with villagers and illagers, depict this visage as well. The books in the Stronghold Vault share this horned shape of its head, and multiple doorways in the End having these same horns. The Dark Armor, which is worn by the Illager Royal Guard during Archie's reign, a reign heavily influenced by the Heart, have this same shaping to them too. This same visage can also be seen briefly as Archie approaches the door leading to the cavern where the orb was held. Likely remnants of what High Block Keep once was in the past. which is something we discuss in more detail in the Broken God theory. This fortress was once run by beings of the End, and it seems that even back then, the soldiers here wore the same type of armor as seen with the Titan's Shroud, a unique variant of the Dark Armor. Its description states that tales associated with it have been passed down for generations, meaning it's older than even Archie's reign, likely from this era of old High Block Keep. Their place within the End's hierarchy seems to have been extremely grand, which makes sense given their apparent origin. But things seem to have changed since those days. This level of importance and worship within their world would have given these creatures a lot of ego, being heavily revered simply for being who they are. Safe to say, it would have gone to their heads after a certain point. Nowadays though, they seem to have been taken out of the equation, with these powerful beings drawing their perfect forms and full power from the End itself. They've been abandoned by their own people across various worlds, as the artifact-like forms they take outside of their endless void. The ultimate goal of the Enderman, as stated within the Minecraft game design book, is to collapse all dimensions by displacing blocks that are key to the world's existence. To bring everything to nothingness is to make it more voidic. More like the End. Something we've suspected the Eyes and know that the Heart of Ender are able to do, though at a far faster and aggressive pace. They seemingly share this goal, as they ventured across Minecraft's dimensions, such as the Nether, and eventually the Overworld to attempt to achieve this. Within the creation of the Warped Forests, the small amounts of purple fungi seen in Minecraft Dungeons Warped Forest level and Minecraft Legends cutscenes indicate that the Heart of Ender was also here, its corruption being notably purple and pink in appearance. Its corruption was cut short, it seems, with far fewer corrupted fungi existing than there exists entire forests worth of warped fungi. Most likely, it was taken, stolen by the Seer. As mentioned in the Fallen Heroes theory, this magic-wielding piglin uses incantations and motions when using the orb, movements akin to the Iceologer or other magic-wielding mobs, even whispering as they utilize its power. If the orb was willing in its use of magic, it would simply cast such spells with something as simple as a wave, as seen with Archie on multiple occasions, including in the novel. These conjurations seem to force the orb to behave as they see fit, but hurting the Seer in the process, as they scream in pain when holding it out directly. Though, the orb itself is also extremely rigid in its rotations, as if being restricted before being promptly put away. It's far from a healthy relationship. The Heart of Ender was being kept as what was essentially a hostage of sorts during the events of Legends, being used directly to corrupt a beacon core, enchanting the Great Hog's spear, or even likely being the reason they could obtain obsidian to create the nether portals, used in the invasion upon the overworld. The End, at the time, seemed to have helped with the overworld's war efforts, in ways we have both mentioned and have yet to explain, clearly working alongside them in an effort to save the Heart, forming a tight-knit alliance in the process. After the war upon the overworld, the Seer falls, though the exact events remain uncertain and shrouded in mystery as of right now. Before you say anything about it possibly affecting this, no, the movie isn't canon. I said it in the first 3 seconds of my video about it. How were there so many comments saying no? How did you not watch the first 3 seconds before leaving a The orb would have felt trapped in this situation, being forced to act against its own will, and hurting its captor in the process. This event shows effects even nowadays, through the form of what appears to be intrusive memories, seen through references to similar situations like with Archie when he ponders a life he wishes he could have, but can't.
Wise villager, once you're on a ride that can't be stopped, it's best to figure out a way to enjoy it.
Likely venting its own experiences with the Seer. Being taken in such a way deeply affects a person in ways they may not even realize until later on. They may exhibit different behaviors from irritability and symptoms of anxiety, such as feeling constantly on edge. Hypervigilance, the heightened state of constantly trying to assess potential threats, is still prevalent through its behaviors and way of thinking. As Thord, an Illager evoker who once bullied Archie as a child, attempts to accuse him of cowardice, the orb immediately gives into its temper, saying,
He is a threat to you and your power. Make an example of him.
Immediately followed by this statement,
Defeat him now,
The novel describes Archie's reaction to this, stating, Archie recoiled at the idea of taking out Thord on the spot. With the power he had in his command, the bully was no longer a real threat to him. At least, not physically. He didn't want to be a ruler that he thought Thord would be. A tyrant that ruled by fear. Thinking this, the Orb remarks,
It's better to rule with fear than to be conquered.
It doesn't end here either. In this scenario, the Orb is practically losing its cool. If the bully could paint him as a coward, his rule over the Illagers would be as short as he was, and as brutal as Thord.
Remove him.
Archie was about to do just that, but he stops himself with the novel saying, then he realized that he'd been about to make a mistake. If he removed Thord, it might end any troubles with the bully, but it would make him seem like maybe Thord was right, and that he had struck too close to home.
Don't worry about that.
Archie ignored the Orb. At this moment, it's paranoid and doesn't think this moment through. When the situation is said and done, the Orb doesn't necessarily disagree that ignoring it was the right thing to do in that moment. The novel describing it says, he told himself he'd been right to ignore the Orb of Dominance's advice about the bully.
For now.
Later on in the novel, Archie realizes that Walder, one of the Illager evokers who acted as his advisor, did not share the fact that Thord was stealing resources from the Fiery Forge. In response, the Orb states,
You cannot trust anyone but yourself.
a clear insight into its own hyper-vigilant perspective. Since its entire world was flipped, being respected, worshipped, and revered in the end, its newfound emotional outbursts, where it essentially loses its line of thinking, would have been a result, fearing the loss of its control over what it believes to be something it's owed. The way it encourages Archie to rule over his subjects is through fear. This concept of power would have been a lot more tyrannical in nature. So it likely did much the same in its time with the Enderman, being harsh and demanding, but not as paranoid. In a similar way, the Eyes of Ender were likely the same way in their treatment of their subjects, being the reason they've also been left out of the end. The dragon seems to be tyrannical in nature too, with the use of the Free the End advancement in-game, and confirmation from Jeb that the Enderman and Ender Dragon do not like each other.
The Ender Dragon and Enderman, they are fighting each other. They don't like each other.
In the fight against the Ender Dragon, they're actually fighting it as well. And since the Orb seems to heavily align itself with the Ender Dragon in the imagery and statues depicted in High Block Keep, the reason the Enderman may have left it behind could be the same reason they hate the Ender Dragon. After the defeat of the Seer, the Orb rejoined its people, helping them to make grand structures in collaboration with the residents of the overworld. On top of its tyrannical rule, as well as its outbursts, the Endermen would eventually turn on it, as they would with all the others who had been in charge of the End. During the events of the novel, Archie wonders early on about the previous wielder of the Orb of Dominance, and why they might have left the Orb behind. And this cycle of questioning brings up a concern for him. And would they be coming back?
No one could ever claim from you.
Archie wondered how the Orb of Dominance could possibly know that for sure. Then, he again decided that he didn't want to know the answer, which was probably wrapped up in how the Orb had fallen into his hands in the first place. The Orb of Dominance knows that no one is coming back for it. After all, there's a reason that it was hidden away in the first place. Even Archie realizes this after he's become aware that the Orb has been manipulating him. Archie wondered if someone else had laid claim to the Orb of Dominance before. Had they become its servant as well? If so, how had they managed to free themselves from it? Could he hope to do the same?
No.
Of course it would say that. It lost everything. Everyone who it ruled over, who used to worship them just for being who they are, the Heart of Ender, deserted them. That's why it chose Archie. Someone easy to manipulate, someone physically weak who would come to rely on it. Someone who could be driven into a corner from the power he'd have, forced to fulfill the role the Heart of Ender had given him. Someone who couldn't just leave it behind like the Enderman. Being abandoned and socially rejected by its own people would have also had a toll on the Orb's state of mind. Abandonment issues may manifest in a variety of different ways, among different people. Feeling a need to maintain control upon others is obvious in the case of the Archillager. Panic and constant worry shows up multiple times through its depictions in the novel, such as when any of the Illagers don't immediately show Archie proper respect. For example, when Walder does not bow down to Archie, the orb seeks to put a stop to this.
You cannot allow such defiance.
Maybe he should have struck her down then to make his point. But Archie was too stunned at the obeisance of the others to let his temper overtake him. It's obvious that the orb, like Archie in this moment, was hot-tempered in response.
And if they did not bow,
Archie's lack of action due to his amazement at the respect that the other Illagers showed him gave the orb some time to calm down and refocus its priorities, saying,
No matter. She will come around. Give the rest of them some time on their knees to absorb the import of this day.
On the other side of the spectrum, abandonment can lead to a people-pleasing mentality, with them seeking validation and reassurance of their worth and use to others. In the beginning of the novel, as Archie first meets the orb, it acts exceptionally friendly. It gives him friendly greetings in the morning, saying,
Good morning. Time to rise. We have a lot of work to do.
Shortly after, Archie realizes that he's starving. The orb, sensing this, conjures a plate full of food for him. As he finishes eating, it summons more and more for him, so much so that he could barely move. After eating, his body is exhausted from it, and the days of running from undead mobs. He curls up on the stone floor of the cave to sleep. The novel stating, a pillow grew out of the ground beneath his head, and a blanket appeared out of the air and settled down over him. As his need to sleep overtook him, he looked up to see the Orb of Dominance hovering above its spectacular staff, standing entirely on its own. The Orb of Dominance watches over him as he sleeps, commanding the golems to stand around him for security and comfort. Later on in the novel, Walder finds a crown for him while she explores the treasures of High Block Keep in his absence. The orb explains,
It comes from the keep's vault. I hashed it for you myself.
Archie disapproves of Walder's intrusive ventures, but the presence of a crown intrigues him nonetheless. But Archie wonders more regarding the creation of it, with the novel detailing his thoughts, saying, how had the orb come up with the crown for him, and a vault filled with treasure to go with it?
I peered into your heart and saw how best to fulfill your deepest desires.
While you might initially assume that the orb treats Archie with kindness solely to get his trust, its behaviours don't always seem disingenuous. After Archie wakes up from his sleep following the feast the orb had prepared for him, several undead mobs make their way inside the cave he had found the orb in. The orb reassures him that he's in no danger, and as Archie tries to defend himself with the orb, beams of light fire out from it, incinerating the husks. With the novel stating, soon every husk in the entire area was gone, leaving behind several neat little piles of ash. Archie gasped in delight. Incredible! He said out loud.
Are you pleased?
The orb sounded so eager. The orb was excited from his reaction. It seemed that this question might have actually come from a genuine place. A subconscious need to please shining through. Being abandoned long ago, it seeks validation in this moment, eager at Archie's joyful response to its display of power. While the orb might still think itself above him, it can't truly shake its deeper desire to belong and be adored. The long-term effects of abandonment show up in more of its interactions with Archie too. The fear of giving too much in a relationship would coincide with its lack of divulging all of its abilities, or even information on its capabilities to Archie. For example, it deliberately withholds information from Archie, revealing its ability to translate the languages of others late into the story. When Archie asks why it didn't do that before, the orb simply says,
He wasn't saying anything you needed to know.
During the novel, Archie doesn't even know that he can use its magic to dart about the land with ease. With the novel stating, apparently Archie's new best friend couldn't teleport him about the land or fly. It wants to have control of what he does, drip feeding him what abilities they can use in order to get him relying on it. Which also fits with another symptom which fits perfectly would be feeling the need to control others. Which feels quite direct in comparison to a lot of the other symptoms resulting from its experiences. It's a response to its fear of losing control, something heightened from its time with the seer and being locked away. It directly gets into his mind, gaining his trust, so that he'd be more willing to listen to its demands. With one quote in the book saying, whenever he was unsure of which way to go, the orb prodded him in one direction or another, and he learnt to trust its instincts as if they were his own. However, there is one thing in which Archie never listens to its demands. Someone who he cares about more than the orb on an emotional level. Yumi, his former friend. A villager who took him in when he first arrived at the Squid Coast. Lost and alone. Archie's first real friend. Her kindness towards him left an impact on him that even the orb can't shake, much to its own frustration. Saying things like,
"Don't worry about her. She isn't worth the trouble."
When he worries that his invasion upon the village will put her in danger. This is one of the few cases where the orb cannot truly influence Archie's decisions and thoughts. Archie stifled the urge to shout at the orb. He understood how the orb felt. Part of him felt that way too. But he couldn't just bring himself to just abandon Yumi to the mercies of his fellow illagers. She'd shown him so much kindness.
And what good did that do you?
For a moment, Archie actually considered tossing the orb aside. Such strength of will in regards to her well-being would no doubt be concerning to the orb, which otherwise has kept a tight grip on his actions. Every time Archie worries about Yumi, the more the orb tries to crack down on those thoughts, trying to convince him, saying,
"You need not worry about her. She is beneath your notice."
Archie has none of it, however. The orb clearly didn't want Archie messing around with their plans. And he understood why. Going to save Yumi ahead of time was ridiculously risky, especially when it did nothing to improve their chances of winning the upcoming battle. But Archie just couldn't find it within himself to leave Yumi's fate to chance.
You cannot protect her always. You are not so worried about her when you are at High Keep.
The orb becomes increasingly frustrated, perhaps even worried. The first time Archie invaded the Squid Coast, he failed, being dragged to the desert temple by a necromancer. This was part of its plans, sure, but he almost died, and the orb certainly didn't want him heading to meet Yumi before then either. The only reason Archie lived then was due to the orb's intervention. But, once more, despite the orb's influence, Archie tries to save Yumi upon his second attempt at raiding the village. The novel details his thoughts. He knew he couldn't keep her safe constantly, but he could at least make sure that he or his people didn't threaten her life, couldn't he?
You are overstepping your bounds.
The orb at this point is frantically trying to put him back in his place. And as Archie begins to realize his role as its servant, and the implications of that which the orb having plotted his moves throughout the novel, it doesn't get better. It had all come together so well. Maybe too well.
Just stick to the plan.
It's very clearly worried. It can't lose control again. Especially not at what's such a pivotal moment for its rise to power. When it comes to Yumi, Archie takes more control. Enough to realize what's happening as the orb protests against him. The novel tells us more, saying he wanted nothing more than to call a halt to the entire invasion, to take her away from all of this. Or maybe to just make peace with the village, with her in charge of it.
It is too late.
Archie couldn't argue with that. It was too late for the village. But for her?
It's too late for her. And for you.
An agonized grimace creased Archie's face. Get out of here! Take whoever you can with you. My army has orders not to stop you. As the orb lashes out, Archie still finds the courage to help Yumi, clearing a way for her. Even if ordering his army might jeopardize the respect they hold for him, much to the orb's dissatisfaction. Lucky for it, that's the last it'll have to deal with Yumi. But even as the orb and the Arch-Illager win this battle, the air is filled with a sour taste. Even so, Archie would fulfill the role he had been given. He has no other choice now. Eventually, however, the reign of the Arch-Illager would come to an end. At the end of their war, they flee to the very top of the Obsidian Pinnacle. Now fighting, seeing that there's nowhere else to go. Archie himself doesn't last long in the battle, leading the Heart of Ender to use more of its full power, to project a stronger form around Archie and itself, putting up more of a fight. Of course though, they're hurt too much by the heroes, and the heart's projected form begins to fade. The orb rises into the air, exploding into a flash of white light, leaving behind a trail of stars as they flee one last time. Making your way up the stairs, before interacting with them, you can see the orb is freaking out once again, tugging with all of its might to get away. But if it were to detach from Archie's staff, it wouldn't be able to move very far, just as in the cave Archie found it in. It's not thinking about that right now, it just wants to run. Archie, on the other hand, is visibly upset by its misbehavior, akin to when it lost its temple at Thor in the novel. Eventually, after enough force, fatigue causes it to shatter into pieces, letting its mental grasp on Archie break, as you can see the angered expression fade from his face. A little while after, it pulls itself back together, some of its shards being flung too far for it to reach. The Illagers, with their newfound knowledge of such ancient locations from their time, with Archie who sent out his forces far and wide to even distant lands, like the islands seen in the Creeping Winter and Jungle Awakens, find the stronghold, which is not even too far from the shore of High Block Castle. Taking the broken orb with them to the island, it ends up in a cave above the stronghold. As you can see the giant spruce trees in the background of the stronghold cutscene. For what purpose is unknown, though it may have something to do with the stronghold being described as suddenly a hub of activity. Something has happened here. They are here. As it sits in the cave, the wall begins to move. The Endermen have found it. Picking it up and realizing what they have come across, they look at each other and decide to bring it home. Back to where all of this started, to the beginning. After all, you can't have something this powerful in the hands of the Illagers, and with them invading the End, they could use its strength to fight against them. After countless years, war, captivity, abandonment, everything that had happened to it, the Heart of Ender was finally going back home. Not long after the Enderman carrying it drops into the portal, the Endersent emerge. Despite their name being similar to Godsent, powerful beings that also were to serve Ender. They seem to want to cut off the connection of the End to the overworld, taking 6 of the Eyes of Ender from the portal, and taking them to random places around the mainland. Their use of bedrock within their areas is interestingly striking, implying that Endersent can either move or somehow create bedrock, which would also explain the presence of bedrock structures in the End, such as the End gateways and the exit portal in the central island. The rune rooms, structures made to house the runes that open the doors to the map of the Mushroom Island and dungeons, are made up of a similar composition, and we've theorized that they were made by Endermen, with bedrock floors and bridges above a sea of purple stars. They appear quite similar to the structures the Endersent carrying these Eyes of Ender seem to be building, being made up of starry purple void blocks and bedrock as well. The Endersent may be trying to build prisons for the Eyes of Ender, in order to lock them away, just as the Heart of Ender had been, storing them away so they can't be free, so that the portal can't open, and so no other invaders can enter the End while they handle the incoming Illager hordes. Even as the heart enters the End, once more, there's still an issue. Because it was broken in the overworld, missing several shards that made it up, it isn't at its full power. It exists as an imperfect form, as described by the files and any official posts from the artists. The Heart of Ender twitches intensely as it travels throughout the dimension, similar to an angry Enderman. They're deeply upset, angry, maybe even scared. As the heroes head into the End, the Heart of Ender continues to run. They don't fight. They just keep running throughout the entirety of the End Wilds, all the way to the Citadel, making it to the very heart of the Void. They've been hurt by these heroes before, and they're going to do it again. As the heroes catch up with the heart for the final time, they've made their way to the center of the End. Their shaking now absent with their relief. Diving into a well of void to repair themselves to full strength, the Heart of Ender rises in their perfect form. They may not have settled in the void pool nearly long enough, their skin flaking off, as described in the concept art, as well as chunks of flesh still missing, exposing their internal goo. They still haven't gotten everything back. They aren't at their full strength. And this may be the reason for their downfall. In their hurry, they didn't think this through. Their attention turned towards the heroes. They roar directly at them, shaking once more with fury. This is it. Kill or be killed. If anything, they're scared. Truthfully, they're alone. The Endermen don't want anything to do with them. They just let the Heart of Ender go while they handle their own issues with the Illagers. None of them even show up to assist the vengeful Heart of Ender during the fight. With absolutely nowhere else to go, they've been backed into a corner once again. After all they've gone through, all this time, finally back home, able to move by themselves again. Is this really going to be it? The Heart of Ender gives everything they've got, all that they can muster with their perfect form, even in their injured state, but it's not enough. In one final moment of fear and panic, they fire lasers wildly in random directions from their eyes. As their lower half breaks apart, each piece of themselves beginning to give way, slamming against each other as their insides break and spill out. The light darkens in their face as their whole body falls over forward, the dimming light of their body going out as they begin to fade away, dissolving into nothingness. Just like the other beings of the End upon death, from the Enderman to the Endersent and the Ender Dragon, the vengeful Heart of Ender is gone. If the Orb wasn't defeated in that battle, they definitely could have used therapy. So, what was it like interacting with the Heart on a daily basis? A lot of research of this video was quite fun. Just remember, we're not experts on this topic. Wither and I just wanted to try something a little different. So if you have your own idea of how its psychology would go, let us know. Also, since it's the popular thing to do, I now have a podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud under Xatrix's Meeting Room. The first episode, Wither and I talk about snapshots, how vibrant visuals is going to affect a lot more than you might think about the future of Minecraft, along with a small hint of lore about our future coverage of the Ender Dragon and more. Go check it out. Anyways, thank you for watching and have a good day or night.